Ilahi ta'ala. Okay, so we started this section on the directions. We covered the fact that there are cardinal directions and relative directions. We established that the cardinal directions do not vary, they don't relocate, etc. Whereas the relative directions are depending on what's being compared. Okay. We also talked about the evidence for the directions. We cited the ayah about Prophet Ibrahim for the direction of east. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْتِي بِالشَّمْسِ مِنَ الْمَشْرِقِ. Indeed, Allah brings the sun from the east. And we cited the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam about the east and the west. That hadith when he pointed into two different directions. Uh, that hadith in which he pointed into two different directions, there's evidence there in the fact that he pointed into two different directions. Where is the evidence in his pointing into two different directions? It is that this proves that the directions are real and they're different from each other. That's one of the things that one might be surprised that he has to deal with that. If he wanted to discuss this issue of the Qiblah in the United States and Canada. In fact, the directions are real, not a social construct like we talked about. And we cited the ayah, وَبِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ. By the star they are guided. By the star they are guided. Here, what is the meaning of the star? And najm. The star here means either the North Star itself or the stars in general. But then, even still, the North Star is the most reliable one. So, that's two ayat and one hadith. An ayah that proves east, a hadith that proves east and west, and an ayah that proves north because it refers to the North Star or includes the North Star. What about south? Well, if you know north, then you know south. And likewise, if you know east and west, then you can know north and south. If you know east and west, you should be able to figure out north and south. And if you can figure out north and south, you should be able to figure out east and west. But the only reason you're not going to be able to do that is if you don't know which one is to the right of the other and which one is to the left of the other. Here's where relative directions is relevant. How is a relative direction relevant here? Because we are saying which cardinal direction is to the right of the other, which cardinal direction is to the left of the other. So, if you were facing east, how would you know north and south? Yani, if you're facing east, you know west, because that's the direction of your back. So, how do you know though which one is north and south? One of them's on your east, one of them's on your right, one of them's on your left. Which one is which? So then no. If you're facing east, south is to your right. That means north is to your left. Let a person know that firmly. If you are facing south, then the west is to your right. If you are facing west, then the north is to your right. If you are facing north, then the east is to your right. Now we just did full circle there. That was 360 degrees. Yani, all the way back to east. I'll say it again. If you are facing east, then know, if you did not know, that the south is to your right. If you are facing south, then the west is to your right. If you are facing west, then the north is to your right. If you are facing north, then the east is to your right. And then turn all the way back east again. That's 360 degrees. Going around to the right. That's a person turning in a circle on his right side, from his right side. So I could leave the reverse of that to the intelligent person's mind and not mention it. And I can also mention it just for the benefit. So what's the reverse of that? Let's say you're facing east. Then it means the north is to your left. If you're facing north, then the west is to your left. If you're facing west, the south is to your left. If you're facing south, the east is to your left. Then turn left, face east, 360 degrees the other way. And by the way, how can you get a decent 90-degree turn? I mean, your own physical body. If you are facing the east, let's suppose you're facing due east, are you able to turn 90 degrees and face smack dab due south accurately without a device? Well, I don't know how accurate you can get, but you can get a decent 90-degree turn if all you do is turn your foot 90 degrees, meaning you're facing forward, east. Your 2 feet are together. Now, let's turn to the right. So just turn your right foot 90 degrees, yani completely to your side. And then swivel on that foot. Swivel on that foot, you're going to turn all the way around 90 degrees. You'll be facing south. Is it 100% due south? Yani not necessarily, but it's going to be pretty much south though. It's going to be good enough for finding your Qiblah. And do the same thing. Just turn your foot 90 degrees, 1 foot. And then swivel on that foot. You're going to turn all the way around again, like 90 degrees though. Then you'll be facing west, and so on. We talked about the fact that the shape of the earth does not influence the directions. We saw a diagram with mountains or hills, if you want, and valleys between one and the Kaaba. And the curves, the dips, and the elevations, they don't change the direction. The direction is, the direction transcends. The direction transcends the terrain and transcends the surface. Like we said, mountains, valleys, rivers, oceans, whatever you want there. None of that is altering any direction. Over the ground, under the ground, in the sky. Subhanallah. Okay, so I'm just continuing here on page 5. At the bottom paragraph, it says the relative directions are relative because what is in front of one person may be behind another. That's clear. Therefore, east, a fixed cardinal direction, may be to one person's right, but to another person's left. Since right and left are relative, yes. These 6 relative directions are not the directions sought for the Qiblah. Yeah, that's not what you're looking for the Qiblah. You're not looking for front or back or over or under. You're looking for east or west, north or south, or what's in between those. The direction you want for the Qiblah is cardinal, not relative. Someone asked a question, and let me answer this question here. It's an important question. Someone said, you talked about how to find all the directions. But how do I find the Qiblah? How do I find the Kaaba? So maybe I didn't mention it, or maybe the answer was embedded in some of what I said. So how are you going to find the Kaaba itself? You need to actually have some knowledge that you're going to have to ascertain. There's 2 questions you could ask yourself, and then you want to ascertain the answers to these questions somehow. Somehow you're going to verify the answers to these questions. Then you're going to know where the Kaaba is from you. The first question is, where does the sun rise first? Where I am or where the Kaaba is? And the second question is, where is the North Star higher? Where I am or where the Kaaba is? So, if the sun rises where the Kaaba is before it rises where you are, that means the Kaaba is east of you. If it rises where you are before it rises where the Kaaba is, means that the Kaaba is west of you. If the North Star is higher in the sky where you are than where the Kaaba is, means the Kaaba is south of you. If the North Star is higher at the Kaaba than where you are, it means that the Kaaba is north of you. So then someone might say, so how can I know? So I'm going to say to him, this is not something that cannot be known. So I can tell you, for example, that from United States and Canada, the sun rises at the Kaaba before it rises where we are. And the North Star is higher where we are than it is at the Kaaba. So now, if you don't believe me, then do some research. Ask knowledgeable people and go to the library, for example. Do some research. But I would say to a person, and anybody who tell you anything different from what I say to you, you come back to me. And I'm telling you right now that the sun rises at the Kaaba from where we are in the United States and Canada. That the sun rises at the Kaaba before it rises where we are. And the North Star is higher where we are than it is at the Kaaba. If somebody tells you otherwise, you come back to me so we can settle this. No. So now, if you ascertain the answers to these 2 questions, then you're going to be able to roughly know the direction of the Kaaba from you. So, for ourselves, since the sun rises at the Kaaba before it rises where we are, and since the North Star is higher where we are than it is at the Kaaba, that means that the direction for us is south of east. That's authentic fiqh. And that's okay. And that's applicable anywhere in the world. That's applicable anywhere in the world. When someone is facing northeast, he is not using this. What I'm saying to you right now, he doesn't use that. He doesn't do it that way. And he says, we are on the other side of the world. The world is not flat. We need to use some calculations that factor in the curve of the earth. This is false. You can just do what the Prophet did. Yes, it is. Yes, the Kaaba is in the center of the world. Allah says, لِتُنذِرَ أُمَّ الْقُرَى وَمَنْ حَوْلَهَا. O Muhammad, so that you would warn al-Qura, very literally, the mother of the towns, that's Mecca, وَمَنْ حَوْلَهَا, and everyone around it, that's everyone. Because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's sent to all the humans. So when the ayah says, وَمَنْ حَوْلَهَا, you are sent to warn al-Qura, the mother of the towns. Okay, that's Mecca. وَمَنْ حَوْلَهَا, and whoever's around it. So who's Prophet Muhammad sent to? Everyone. So then whoever's around it? That's everyone. So that means that it's in the center. Some scholars said it's the navel of the earth. Mecca is the navel of the earth. Okay. So anyone should agree that cardinal directions are fixed and that it is the relative directions that vary. So at this point, that's very, very clear. Or else the one who disagrees would be denying reality. And further discussion would be futile because you're going to have a sensible discussion with someone who denies reality. And there's a likelihood that you're not. There's a substantial percentage that you're not going to have a reasonable discussion with someone who denies reality. Some people who face Northeast in the USA and Canada disagree with this. How we are differentiating between these cardinal and relative directions. They are confused, believing that cardinal directions are relative. They believe the cardinal directions are relative. Yani, they believe cardinal directions change. They'll tell you that. But might only tell you that if you bring them to that in the discussion. Yani, if you wind up there, then they're going to say, no, it's true, cardinal directions do change. Why else would they put a string over a globe thinking that this is how to use a globe? And they didn't even know how that string over the globe was changing directions. They thought it was a straight line because they're looking at the globe as a ball. They're not reading the grid. They're just looking at the globe as a ball. It's like just geometry here for them. Mere geometry here. And they're putting the string over the ball from point A to point B and saying, look at this straight line. So yeah, if you take the grid out of it, if you take the map aspect out of it, then you are able to say this is straight line over this sphere. But when you put the grid there, then it's not a straight line because the grid is what's dictating north, east, south, and west, not the shape. See right there where they mixed it up. The grid is what's dictating north, east, south, and west, not the shape. And why is it that the grid is what's dictating north, east, south, and west? Because that's a map and it's not a real Earth. Had it been a real Earth, then the sunrise would have been dictating east and west, or east, and sunset west, and north star north, and therefore south. So yeah, they do blend the cardinal directions and the relative directions. That's the meaning of this sentence here. Why else would they put a string over a globe thinking that this is how to use a globe? Or a really better question is, why else would they put a string over a globe and think that this is a straight line? And just call the whole thing northeast, call the whole line northeast. You're saying, because look, it doesn't change. Merely for the geometrical aspect of it. Is this clear what I'm saying? And Yani, when you look at it geometrically like they do, then yes, like we just said, that's a straight line from this point to that point over that sphere. Uh, and so they're going to say yes. Therefore, this is definitely correct because math isn't wrong, brother. The math's not wrong, brother. Now I'm going to pull out my spherical trigonometry on you. Okay, all your math's not wrong. But you're doing the wrong thing still. Your math might be right. You're dealing with spheres and lines over a sphere of Yani from this point A to point B. Fine, your math is okay. We're not even talking about that. All of that we're not talking about. You took something that we're not even talking about and put it in the place of what we are talking about. And what we are talking about, you removed it. You just kept something like it looks like from the outside. What we are talking about is finding cardinal directions, Yani, is locating the Kaaba. Locating the Kaaba based on uh, classical evidence. Sunrise, North Star. Uh, Locating the Kaaba itself, knowing where you are, and then using these signs to find the direction you need. Meaning what? You're going to say, like we just said, if the sun rises where I am before the Kaaba, then I'm east of the Kaaba. Or else I'm west of the Kaaba. If the North Star is higher where I am than at the Kaaba, then I'm north of the Kaaba, or else I'm south of the Kaaba. Therefore, the Kaaba is such and such direction from me. So there's your conclusion. You formulated a premise, your premises. Your conclude. Yes. The thing about the North Star is if it is higher where you are than it is at the Kaaba, and what that means is higher from the horizon. How high do you have to lift your head up to see it? How high you have to lift your vision up in the sky to see it? From the horizon. When you look straight ahead, you're looking into the horizon. The horizon goes from side to side. So imagine you are looking straight ahead and it's nighttime and you see a star. Look, but you're just looking straight ahead, not up above yourself. So if you were able to see a star just looking straight ahead, that means that star is going to be right over the horizon. That means close to the horizon. That means it's low. Now, that star that you see, start walking towards it. And the more and more you walk in that direction, you're going to notice it just keeps getting higher and higher, higher and higher. Even walking and walking and walking for weeks and months, getting higher and higher. And what else is happening? Your environment is getting colder and colder. You can keep walking facing this star, and it's just getting higher and higher, and everywhere is getting colder and colder until it gets directly over your head. So if the North Star is higher where you are than it is at the Kaaba, then that means you're north of the Kaaba. If it is higher at the Kaaba than it is where you are, that means the Kaaba is north of you. So here we are where, for example, it snows. And if you want to go into Canada, it gets even colder. And and Mecca is in the desert. The Kaaba is in the desert. So the North Star is definitely higher where we are than it is there. We are north of the Kaaba. You're about to say something? The edge of the earth? I never learned any description about the edge of the world. I never heard also about anyone falling off of the earth. So I'm not going to say anybody will fall off the earth. I never learned that somebody would fall off the earth or ever has. But for sure it's not spinning, and for sure no one is upside down. It's not flat. So why else would they put a string over a globe thinking that this is how to use a globe? Did they learn that method in middle school or at the university level? At which stage of their education did they learn about this method? In middle school or at the university level? They have made ignorance a scholastic standard because they're going to argue with you like this is some heavy science here. Just gaslight you though. And let us establish that directions are physically confirmed and existing. We already did. From the hadith. When the Prophet ﷺ pointed in two different directions for the east and the west, he physically pointed into two different directions. They are not, the directions are not mere concepts without reality. Why we have to mention that? Yani, the fact we have to mention that is really something significant. Because it shows you the extent of how far some people went to argue for falsehood. That they would say that the cardinal directions are not real and they're only social constructs. One can simply point or even look into a direction, thereby confirming it. In fact, if a person faces east, north is to his left, west is behind him, and south is to his right. So here we are. Therefore, if he faces south, north is behind him, east is to his left, and west is to his right. This used to be common knowledge. So let any person know this. Really, if you can find one direction, you should be able to find all directions, all the other three. Any one direction you can find, you should be able to find all of them. So one mistake of northeasters is mixing these two sets of directions, the relative and the cardinal. Like we said already, it's very clear now. The result of that mixture is that despite that in the real physical world in which we live, Mecca is still south of the southernmost USA. Mecca is still south of the southernmost USA. And they know that. They know that. So that's the thing always when you're arguing with somebody who knows and he's still saying the wrong thing. Their fallacy is to say, if one embarks on a journey going northeast from New York, for example, let me add that. From New York, for example, then stayed on a straight course going forward, there's your relative direction forward, without going right or left, that's what demonstrates that they don't know how to read the map, or they just are not if they do know how, because the line that they put is going right and left. If you're going east, it's a right turn. If you're going west, it's a left turn. But again, they're looking at it how? Purely geometrically only. They're saying, look, this is a line over, this is a string over a sphere. This line right here, we're going to name the whole thing northeast. That's what they're doing. Regardless of really what's happening on the grid. So they said, if one embarks on a journey going northeast from New York, for example, then stayed on a straight course going forward, without going left or right, he will reach Mecca without turning, although it is southeast in terms of bearing, not direction. And they say, although it is southeast in terms of bearing. So right there, And you don't expect a person to be stupid. That's how I feel about it. You're going to say that to a person and expect them to accept that. This statement literally is saying that you can go from north to south while going east without turning. Although, Yani, south is on the right side of east, north is on the left side of east. Subhanallah. So, yeah, it's clear. They think that the line that they put on the globe is a straight line. It's not a straight line. They mix their geography. They mix their geometry and their geography. They blended geometry and geography inappropriately. They are unfortunately so ignorant about how to read a map that they do not realize that the string that they put over the globe turns left and right. And it turns left if you're going west, turns right if you're going east. How could they read any map and not know what represents a right or a left turn? I think this is very actually, Yani, I think this point right here is shocking for someone. Someone who thought that that line on the globe was straight. And then now it's being said to him, that's right turn. So he just said, well, let me look and see if I can understand what this guy's trying to say. And then he looks and he sees that that's true. SubhanAllah. Then he's going to make a decision whether to stay doing what he's doing, or fix his situation. So many times they stay doing what they're doing. How could they read any map and not know what represents a right or left turn? In this case, they fool themselves by looking at their string with an aerial bird's eye view. They fool themselves by looking at their string with an aerial bird's eye view, so that the string looks straight by looking down at it from overhead. Because just a string over a sphere for them. The map is really irrelevant. We will come back to this with diagrams, God willing. And concerning their saying, it is southeast in terms of bearing and not direction, those words are mere fluff to make their contradiction obscure. And also, when they say, if one were to embark on a journey going northeast from New York and then he stayed on a straight course, there's a blunder right here for the fact that they are regarding a trip. It's not a matter of a journey. You don't have to plot a course to face the Kaaba. So here's a title. Do you have to plot a course to face the Qiblah? And then the answer says, only if you face northeast in North America. So the answer is no. That means the answer is no. Otherwise, the fact that one can face a direction without plotting a course and without comparing his prayer to an airplane flight is of the utmost importance. Had one traveled or moved, things that were in front of him will become behind him. And what was on his right side or his left side will go to the other side because he's moving around. But nothing will change those fixed cardinal directions. East, west, north, and south are going to stay still. It is obvious that one can easily face directions without concerning himself with traveling or moving. Is that clear? For the Qiblah, we want a cardinal direction, not a shape. Yani, this is what we want. It's important to know exactly what your goal is. And pinpointing a goal, pinpointing a point is very important. To be able to do so is very important. For the Qibla, we want a cardinal direction. This is what we want. Not a shape, not a route. not a motion or a movement, not an arc, not a distance. All these are things they are saying. This all the things they want. Not this one though. Not cardinal direction. None of these five things matter. Nor is the Qiblah an advanced math problem, some geography or trigonometry. I mean geometry. I said geography. Geometry or trigonometry. It's none of that. This is why the correct way to pray an obligatory or optional prayer in a moving vehicle, like a boat, plane, train, or even a howdah, that's the box that goes on the back of an elephant or a camel, is to not turn with the vehicle. Not turn with the vehicle. This is a rule right here. This is why the correct way to pray an obligatory or optional prayer in a moving vehicle is, you want to talk about moving, why this rule is here. You want to talk about moving? You want to talk about traveling? What's correct is that for an obligatory or an optional prayer in a moving vehicle, so this is a rule that's already been established over 1,000 years ago. Like a boat, boats were existing then. A plane today or a train today, but say has the judgment of a boat. And train has the judgment of a caravan, or even a howdah, which is the box on the back of the elephant or a camel, has the same judgment as a car. It has the same judgment as a motorcycle. Yani is basically as a cockpit, that box on the elephant or the camel. And that's what your car is, basically a cockpit, like a plane. All this has the same judgment on a moving vehicle like a boat or a plane or a train or even in a howdah. So it means also in the car and on the motorcycle. It is the judgment is not to turn with the vehicle. If you are praying on the vehicle, you cannot turn with the vehicle. You must maintain your prayer direction. Yani, so that shows you right there the travel is different from the direction in the first place. The traveling is different from your prayer direction in the first place. This is known judgment. If you're on a boat, Yani person could have been a Muslim learning his religion 1,000 years ago. And he would have learned that when he's on that boat, then if it turns, he has to maintain his Qiblah. So the invention of airplanes is not going to make the judgment change. And 1,000 years ago, someone would have learned the rules for being in that cockpit on the back of the elephant or camel. So then the car is not going to change the rule. You cannot turn with the vehicle. All of that, by the way, is different from riding on an animal's back. That's different from riding on an animal's back. Because somebody might be hearing what I'm saying right now. And he's rushing, saying, no, 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 you did wrong. I didn't finish saying what I'm saying. All of those do not have the judgment of riding on an animal's back. That's different. Riding on an animal's back has its own rule, whether you're on a saddle or not on a saddle. That's not the same as being in a cockpit. Riding on the animal's back is not the same as being on the being in a cockpit. Being on the animal is the one where yani you're you're just okay. The rule for the animal is that anyway, excuse me. The rule is your destination while you're on the animal, your destination becomes your Qiblah. That's the rule. So according to that your destination becomes your Qibla while you're praying the Sunnah prayer on an animal, then you have to maintain that direction. So in this case, when you're riding on the back of the animal and your destination is your Qibla, you still can't be going all over the place, left and right, and turning and all of that. So to make that clear, yeah, if you're because your travel required for you to turn, then you're going to turn. Yes. If your animal turned you, you got to put your animal back on course immediately, or your prayer is going to be invalidated. Yeah. If your animal turned you, if your animal took you off of your Qibla, which is your destination direction, when you're riding the back of an animal praying an optional prayer, your destination becomes your Qibla. If your animal takes you off of that, takes you off course while you're praying, then you have to put the animal back immediately, or else your prayer will be invalidated. No. So, so the riding on the back of the animal is not compared to anything. Riding on the back of the animal has its own judgment. Riding in vehicles is not like riding on the back of the animal. So, to make it more clear, how do we know that riding in a vehicle is not the same as riding on the back of an animal? Although they didn't have these vehicles we have today. Because they had vehicles, though. They did have vehicles, though. And so the judgment doesn't change. Which vehicles they had? They had boats. What was the religious judgment already known? You cannot turn with the boat. You have to stay on your Qibla. They also had caravans. Like, imagine basically their old version of a pickup truck, for example. Horse and carriage. You're in the back. You might even be able to lay down in there or something. So if you're praying on there, you cannot turn with it. You got to stay on your Qibla. Just because now we have battery powered vehicles doesn't change the rule. And also they had Hodaj, the box on the back of the animal. That one also had a different judgment from actually riding on the back of an animal. If someone says, where you get this from? I'm going to say it's from fiqh. I've been telling you, Qibla is an issue of fiqh. You need to learn fiqh. You can't just be talking about Qibla like from your imagination. From maps. Just because you can talk about maps a little bit and maybe you know some math and you say, well, I know how to find directions. I can talk about directions. I can talk about the Qibla. So in the airplane, on the train, in the car, you cannot turn with the vehicle. Why are we talking about this? Because we're talking about, those people talk about travel for determining the Qibla. How would you get there? We are saying that's irrelevant. In fact, you want to talk about travel? I guess you didn't know that according to the rules, when you are traveling in the vehicle, not talking about riding the back of the animal, rather traveling in the vehicle, then you cannot turn with the vehicle. This in itself proves that the traveling is different from the prayer direction. That's clear. Allah says, فَوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ شَطْرَهُ. Turn yourselves towards its shatr, its direction. Do not mix praying in a moving vehicle with the specific case of praying an optional prayer while riding upon the back of an animal. That's a very specific case. As someone might say, oddly specific. Oddly specific. That means don't compare it to something else. In that case, you make your takbir in the direction of the Kaaba. You're on your animal now. Get on the back of your animal. Face the Kaaba. Make your takbir, and then turn your animal into the direction of your destination, and your destination becomes your Qiblah, even for a short journey. You can pray upon the back of this animal, and then you're going to observe certain rules like I told you. Like if your animal takes you off course, you got to put it back immediately. And concerning this verse here, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, it means whichever way you turn, then there is the wajh of Allah. Two things need to be clarified. Wajh of Allah does not mean that Allah has an organ called face. So that's first thing. And that's a discussion for the Wahhabis. But we're not talking about Wahhabis now, we're talking about Qiblah. Wajh in this spot means jihah, which means the valid Qibla direction. Jihah means direction. Wajh means jihah. Subhanallah, you knew Arabic. Yani jihah means wajh, actually. They both mean same thing. Jihah means wajh. Just like sifa means wasf. And zina means wazn. That's maybe not clear for you. I'm saying that though for someone who understands it. Some think that this verse proves that the Qibla is valid in any direction. They said, no, you can face any direction anyway. So, what you might encounter. Someone who tells you Qibla is northeast. Then you're going to prove him wrong. And then he's going to say, well, you can face any direction anyway. He was just telling you the right direction was northeast. Then when he got refuted, he said, you can face any direction. He should have said, you're right, Barakallahu Fiqh. So he would say, this ayah proves you can face any direction. فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Whichever way you turn, then there is the wajh of Allah. So they say, whichever way you turn, you can face any way. Imam As-Suyuti commented on this. In Al-Itqan, he said, فَإِنَّا وَلَوْ تُرِكْنَا وَمَدْلُولَ اللَّفْظِ. Had we been left with only the apparent meaning of the expression, لَقُتَضَى أَنَّ الْمُصَلِّيَ لَا يَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ اسْتِقْبَالُ الْقِبْلَةِ. It would have dictated that it is not obligatory on the one who prays to face the Qibla. And he's saying this ayah, it seems like you can face any direction. It seems like this ayah proves that you can face any direction. Had we been left only with the wording of the ayah, then it would have left us to be able to face any direction. Safaran wala hadara, whether traveling or residing, وهو خلاف الإجماع. As Suyuti said, but that's against the consensus. He's saying no scholar, there is no scholar who said that you can face any direction. So, in other words, it's like saying, if you want to bring this ayah to prove that you can face any direction, you're basically saying, I don't follow any scholars. And these people actually, the ones who argue for Northeast, a lot of them, there's two parties of them. One party of them, and I wonder if it's the main body of them, they don't follow scholars. And I never got the sense from them that they even care about hadiths. Yeah. The way to maintain your prayer, if you're on a vehicle, a moving vehicle that turns, is to actually turn. Stay on the Qibla. You have to keep on the Qibla. So if a person's praying on a plane or any other vehicle, he should pray fast before he realizes that he turned, so that he can pray without turning, and then he'll be safe. Ameen wa fiq. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.